back to the MMA Training Bible's Guide to Peak Performance. And of course, you know what we covered in the first 4 sessions, and we don't want to dwell too much on that because what really matters is what we cover in this, the last session, Session 5, Programming the Training Sessions. So officially, welcome to the final session, Session 5, Programming the Training Sessions across your fight plan. Specifically in this session, I'm going to show you how to program resistance and endurance training sessions across your entire fight plan, which will include, of course, the general prep phase and the longer plans, and the fight-specific phase and the fight camp and the taper and the transition and all the plans. And we're also going to talk about the types of sessions that you should include in recovery weeks, and we're going to talk about warm-ups and cool-downs. We're going to cover a lot here. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover in this session. And of course, in the longer 12 and 6-month plans, we're going to start with the general prep phase, but we start with the fight-specific phase in the shorter, the 4 and the 3-month plans. And then we'll schedule workouts for the fight camp, and then we're going to schedule the whole taper and the transition, and we're going to talk about recovery weeks and warm-ups and cool-downs along the way. Okay, so if you recall from the Science of MMA course, I taught you how to manipulate factors like work-to-rest ratio to target different energy systems and to build unstoppable endurance, and I shared a whole bunch of endurance workouts with you to that end. I also taught you how to manipulate things like the load and repetitions to develop things like muscular endurance and hypertrophy and strength and, of course, power. And again, I gave you a whole bunch of workouts. It's time to show you how to place those workouts into your training plan to develop peak performance. Now, our general approach here is really in this pyramid, and I want to talk you through it. Again, we covered this before, but we're going to recap just so we're on the same page. Now, at the base of the pyramid, we focus on developing the aerobic energy systems alongside muscular endurance. This foundational work occurs mostly in the general prep phase, which it's always found in the longer plans. Again, it's not found in the shorter plans because we assume that fighters who are competing in a few months have adequately developed their fitness in this capacity. But we also focus on these goals in the transition, so it's not the end of the world. Now, after we shift focus to aerobic glycolysis alongside muscular hypertrophy as we move up this pyramid, now this shift happens towards the end of the general prep phase in the longer plans and at the beginning of the fight-specific prep phase otherwise. As we ascend the pyramid and move through the fight-specific phase, we start to focus on anaerobic glycolytic energy systems as well as the development of muscular strength and power. And as we move into the fight camp and taper, higher intensity efforts focus on the ATP-PCR system, which, again, even though it's an anaerobic energy system, you can still develop the aerobic energy systems when you train it, so that's why we do it. Also, because of course MMA requires a combination of muscular endurance and strength and power, we focus on all of those in the fight camp and taper. Okay, so now I hope you understand our general approach here. Now, what I'd like to do now is go into a bit more detail about how we assign specific workloads to specific phases and specific workouts right across your whole fight plan. Now, I've created a document called the MMA Training Bible's Guide to Peak Performance that assigns different workouts to different phases of your fight plan. And you can download this in the Document Center, but I'm going to go ahead and open it here and we can look at it and see how it's structured. So let's bring it up. So here's the title page, the first page you'll see, Programming Across the Fight Plan. When you download this, it's a little disclaimer here. And then here's the table of contents. You can see it's broken down. We have general preparatory phase workouts, fight-specific preparatory phase workouts, fight camp workouts, taper workouts, transition workouts, recovery, warm-ups, cool-downs, and flexibility. We talk about the fight simulation. I also give you sample resistance training workouts, A, B, C, D, and E, if you remember that. And I give you the training log template. And I also think it's important to remind you of important things like, say, for example, overtraining signs and symptoms. But this is the first thing that we want to talk about right here. Okay, so remember, you only have the general prep phase and the longer plans. Also, all of this should seem a little bit familiar because we covered it all in detail in the Science of MMA course. So I'm only going to give you a review of this document just to save a little bit of time. And if you want, of course, more details about why these workouts are structured the way they are, I suggest that you go back and rewatch the Unstoppable Endurance lecture for a full description of the endurance workouts and the explosive strength and power lecture for a full description of those resistance training workouts. And also you should rewatch the flexibility and warm-ups lecture because I'm sure that will help you out too. So okay, let's give you a little overview of what we're looking at here, and let's start with the top. Let's talk about endurance workouts. So as I mentioned, you can see at the top of this table, it shows you workouts that you can use to build endurance. The main headings include the work to rest ratio, the work interval, the rest interval, the metabolic target, which we'll use in your fight plan. That's pretty important. And there's a few example workouts, and I hope you find those useful. And most importantly, the phase of training that each workout should be placed into. Now, in general, workouts at the top of the table are scheduled earlier in the general prep phase. Workouts lower in the table should be scheduled in the middle and later stages of the general preparatory phase. Now, what you'll notice is that the work interval is longer at the beginning of the general prep phase and it gets shorter as you go along. In this way, you increase intensity across the general prep phase, and the rest interval also actually increases. The one exception to this, it's the last row here, which features a work to rest ratio of 1:3 to 1:4, which we use across the 6-month general prep phase as well. So all you need to do is refer to your fight plan to determine whether you're in the early, mid, or late phase of your fight plan. Then simply select the appropriate workout and just put it in there. Now, as you can see, the bottom half of this table shows resistance training workouts. The headings include, as you can see, training load, training volume, rest intervals, exercise selection and order, along with the sample workout, followed by the phase of training again. Now, the training load, it's important to note as we'll use this as a goal in our fight plan, and we're going to talk more about this shortly. Another important thing to note here in the example is the workout. Now, if you recall from the lecture on building explosive strength and power, I shared a document with you titled The MMA Training Bible's Guide to Explosive Strength and Power, which we covered training techniques and we provided you with a whole bunch of sample workouts. Now again, just for simplicity, I've taken those sample workouts and placed them at the end of this document. I think it's around page 11. So here, importantly, when the table is referring to workouts A or B or C or D or E, just simply jump to page 11 or wherever it is in this document just to see what it actually entails. Now, if you need further description of the techniques, you'll need to go back to the original document titled The MMA Training Bible's Guide to Explosive Strength and Power, which covers training techniques in great detail. And again, that can be found in the Science of MMA course, which you should have access to. Now, the most important thing to note here is that the emphasis shifts from developing muscle endurance early in the general prep phase to muscle hypertrophy towards the end of this phase. And you can see how the load and the repetitions should change to meet these goals here. Okay, let's move on. So as you can see here, we have the same setup in the fight-specific phase. So let's talk about endurance workouts first. Again, as you progress through this phase, the work-to-rest ratio increases. Also, you should be slotting endurance workouts in your fight plan from the top of the table, moving to the bottom. And again, you can use the phase of training guidance on the right side of the table to help you do this. So for example, if you have a few weeks focusing on, say, 2-minute intervals, then you drop the work interval to, say, 90 seconds, 80 seconds, 70 seconds, and you'd be working with intervals in the 60, 50, and 40-second range by the end of that phase. Now, in terms of resistance workouts, you start the fight-specific phase with a focus on muscle hypertrophy. That's somewhere in the region of 6 to 10 reps. And then you move to strength in the middle of the phase, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 reps. And then you finish out with a focus on muscle power in the late phase. And again, you can refer to page 11 to 15 in this document to learn about the specific workouts that we recommend. In this case, as you can see, it's A through E. Now importantly, you should also incorporate the fight simulation in this phase, and this simulation is described in more detail on page 10, so let's have a look at exactly what this is. So we'll just scroll down to the appropriate section, and here we are. Okay, so importantly, the goal of the fight simulation is to mimic the demands of a typical MMA match, which it can be 3 to 5 5-minute rounds. Now the structure of this workout, it looks a bit complicated, but it's pretty simple. You're always essentially pairing a resistance movement with an endurance movement. And there are a lot of ways to progress this workout, but let's give you the simplest example. And again, it's shown here at the bottom of the table. So let's say that you've done this a few times and you're able to complete 5 rounds. Each round here is shown across the top of the table. Each round is made up of 5 blocks, which always pair a resistance movement with an endurance movement. And you have the flexibility anytime to choose anything that you like. This is, again, just an example. Now, as you can see here in round 1, the first block, we're pairing the power clean with the treadmill, specifically running, followed by 60-second rest. So you'd perform the power clean for 30 seconds, then go right to the treadmill, run for 30 seconds, then take 60 seconds of rest. Then after that, you move to block 2, which pairs the bench press and shadow boxing, each for 30 seconds, again followed by 60 seconds of rest. Then you move on to block 3, which pairs back squat with an ab exercise called bicycle, and then block 4, which pairs bench over row with pad striking, and then of course block 5, as you can see here, which pairs an ab movement with skipping. Now after you complete block 5, you take 60 seconds rest, then move to round 2. Now round 2 features 5 more blocks, and you can see the pairings here. You basically continue this until you've completed 5 rounds in this case. And so, of course, there's a few ways that you can increase the difficulty in this workout. One, it's by reducing the rest between blocks. Here, we're using 60 seconds rest, but as you get fitter, as you want more of a challenge, you'll reduce the rest from 60 seconds to 45 seconds, to 30 seconds, to 15 seconds, to ultimately no rest at all between the blocks. Now, the next way to increase the difficulty, if you want to, is to increase the number of rounds that you're completing. Anything from 2 to 5 is reasonable, but it really depends upon how fit you are. You want to start on the lower side. And there are lots of ways to progress this workout. You can increase the difficulty by pairing more challenging exercises together, or using more resistance, or working at a higher pace, for example. You could also adjust the work time for the resistance movement and the endurance movement from, say, 15 to 45 seconds. It doesn't have to be 30 seconds. Now, you're really only limited by your fitness and creativity in this exercise. That's why I like it so much. So let's go back up and talk about the next grouping of workouts. Fight camp workouts. So just like the fight specific phase, you'll find the fight camp in all of the plans. So let's talk about endurance workouts here. Now again, as you progress through this phase, the work to rest ratio increases. You should be slotting in endurance workouts in your fight plan from the top of this table moving to the bottom, and again, you can use the phase of training guidance on the right side of the table to help you do this. You can see that you're moving essentially from 30-second intervals at the beginning of the fight camp down to really short intervals in the 5 to 6 second range by its end. Now for resistance training workouts, you need to focus on muscle endurance, muscle strength, and muscle power equally throughout the fight camp because they're all individually trainable and they're all pretty important on fight day. And again, you can refer to pages 11 to 15 in this document to learn about the specific workouts that we recommend. And again, in this case, it's A through E. And again, you have the fight simulation. You should incorporate this throughout this phase. And just like the fight camp, you'll find the taper in all phases and all plans. Now remember, the goal here is to drastically reduce volume and maintain intensity. And we have specific workouts that you should include here. So for endurance workouts, this involves using very large work-to-rest ratios to maintain intensity while dissipating fatigue. You should be slotting endurance workouts in your fight plan again from the top of this table moving to the bottom, and again you can use the phase of training guidance on the right side of this table to help you do this. And again, you can see here that you're hovering around 30-second intervals right down to intervals as short as 5 to 6 seconds in the taper. For resistance workouts, we focus on muscle strength and muscle power equally through the taper. Now again, you can refer to page 11 to 15 in this document to learn about the specific workouts that we recommend, and again, in this case it's A through E. Now, important point for the fight simulation. I don't recommend that you do the fight simulation during the taper because it can really build up a lot of fatigue, but some people really feel like they need it, so if this describes you, maybe just fit it in during the first week of the taper. Okay, let's talk a little bit about transition workouts. Now remember, after the fight comes the transition, and it's all about dissipating fatigue and recovering from any injuries you picked up during the fight, and of course from this long training plan. And again, we always program workouts from the top of the table to the bottom. So for endurance workouts, this means focusing on oxidative energy systems and longer work intervals, somewhere in the 5-minute range is good. For resistance workouts, this includes a focus on muscle endurance early on, followed by muscle hypertrophy and strength as you move through the phase. And for the fight simulation, I don't recommend that, again, you do the fight simulation. I don't recommend you do any fight-specific movements or training in this whole transition period, including the fight simulation, because this is really a time to get away from all your fight-specific activity. You need a mental as well as physical recovery here. Okay, let's talk about a couple other points here now. Recovery workouts. These should be incorporated throughout your entire fight plan during recovery weeks. Now, the main goal with these workouts is to allow you to recover from intense training weeks without experiencing any detraining. So you really have a lot of flexibility what you can choose here. For example, you could include non-contact, intermittent high-intensity games if you want, like basketball, or even focus on your Olympic lifting technique, which is very useful. You could also include lower intensity whole body movements like running or swimming or cycling, or depending upon your fitness, you can include more organized intervals like those that are shown here. Now, in terms of warm-ups and cool-downs and flexibility, for easy reference, I've included a brief word on warm-ups and cool-downs here. But remember, we covered this in a lot more detail in the Science of MMA lectures, so if you're confused, if you want an update, go back and watch those. Now for flexibility, this is just a quick reminder of the structure of a flexibility workout. And again, you should refer to the lecture on the Science of MMA course and the stretching techniques document in particular for more details here. All the information is there. And the remainder of the document, let's just quickly scroll through it so we have a look. So we covered the fight simulation, so you know what you're getting there. Again, these are the example workouts that I showed you. Resistance workout A with the pictures, so you know exactly what to do. Resistance workout B and C here, and D and E. And then I gave you a brief little cheat sheet with the resistance workouts. Also, if you wanted to write in your loads, reps, sets, and rest here, all of those shortened. I've given you the training log. And again, I've mentioned again overtraining signs and symptoms. There's one last thing that I wanted to mention before we get back to this lecture here. Now, we talked about how you progress your endurance and resistance training workouts in detail in the Science of MMA course, but just as a quick reminder, it's all about manipulating overload. And there are lots of ways to apply the principle of overload. If you recall, you can increase the number of exercises or sets or repetitions. You can change the rest periods. You can increase the sessions per week or even per day. You can increase the training load, that's the weight or resistance you're using, but remember, you must be cautious and conservative. You can progress by increasing the overload by using a couple rules that we talked about. You can use a 2-for-2 rule or the quantity of load increase. Okay, so let's get back to the lecture and get on with the next phase, which involves walking you through an example of how we actually program across the fight plan. Okay, so now it's time to bring this home. I'm going to walk you through an example of how we take the workouts that I just showed you and plug them into a fight plan. Now, right off the bat, you should know that there is not one right way to do this. There certainly are some wrong ways, but as long as you follow our general approach, you stick with me, you're going to be fine. It's also important to know that you don't need to program workouts across your entire fight plan right now. I'm going to show you everything across your whole fight plan, but you don't need to do that now for you. So much can happen in a short period of time that it doesn't make sense to plan so far into the future. For example, your work schedule might change, social and family life can change, and of course your adaptation to training will change, and all of these factors will influence how often you can train, also what you can do in each session. And so for these reasons, you really only need to plan 2 weeks out and really not more than a month out if you really want to get crazy. I recommend, again, just programming workouts in the sub-phase that you're about to complete. Now, just to be thorough, again, I'm going to take you through an example of programming a whole fight plan so that you can see how it's done. I recommend that you keep on coming back to this lecture as you program your sub-phases until you get the hang of it, and I'm sure you will. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this specific example, the step-by-step process. Okay, so to save a little bit of time, I've gone ahead and I've filled in this entire fight plan, so it will look a little bit different from where we left off in the last session, but don't worry, I'm going to take you through everything that I've done. So, first things first, and the first thing that you need to do is schedule when you're going to complete our testing battery. You should plan on going through this testing battery certainly before you start the plan, because this will serve as a baseline for measuring your adaptation to training over the next few months. After this, in general, I recommend scheduling a testing battery like this every 1 or 3 months or so. So let's go ahead and have a look at what we've done here in this plan. So you can see right off the bat, you can see we've scheduled the testing dates right here for the first day of the plan. I can scroll over this here and it just says performance testing. And you can see the first sub-phase here, and we've scheduled another testing battery for the end of the first sub-phase, and then another testing battery for the end of the second sub-phase, which coincides with the end of the fight-specific phase. And let's scroll over here. And then that brings us right into the fight camp, and we've scheduled another testing battery for about midway through the fight camp. And we don't schedule another testing battery until the end of this fight plan in the transition, when we go ahead and transition into another fight plan. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to schedule another testing battery in here. It's just slightly unnecessary, and it might bring about excess fatigue, and it wouldn't tell us what we really want to know. So this is the best place in my view. Okay. Now, separate from this, I recommend that you schedule the testing battery at the end of a recovery week to ensure that you're always adequately recovered and free from fatigue. And the reason being is that this hopefully will make your results more comparable across the fight plan. And again, you should refer to the lecture in the Science of MMA course for details on conducting this testing battery. Everything that you need to know is there. Okay, let's go back to the beginning here. The next thing that you need to do after you've scheduled your testing dates, and actually I should pause here and say that you should be pausing this video and filling in this information as we go. I don't want you to get too far behind, so please pause the video and complete your testing date scheduling if you haven't done that already. Else, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next thing that you need to be doing, which is scheduling your training goals. So scheduling your training goals is pretty important, and we're going to do it by phase. And of course, remember, in these short plans, in the 4-month plans and 3-month plans, we don't have a general preparatory phase. So the first phase that we're jumping into scheduling, for training goals anyway, is the fight-specific phase. And so you can see that right here. So for resistance training in the fight-specific phase, you should be focusing on muscular endurance and muscular strength and muscular power across this whole fight-specific phase. And for endurance training, you'll focus on aerobic glycolysis in the early phase and transition ultimately into anaerobic glycolysis and muscle buffering in the late phase. Now let's have a look at the remainder of the plan here, this rather short plan. That brings us into the fight camp. Now, for resistance training, you'll again focus on muscular endurance and muscular strength and muscular power evenly over the first 6 weeks of the fight camp, and then you transition to maintenance work for the last 4 weeks, which includes your taper. Again, this is because any training that you do in the 4 weeks or so before your fight will bring about an adaptation really after your fight, and that's rather useless to us. So rather than adaptation in these last 4 weeks, we focus on maintenance. We want to maintain what you have. We want to encourage dissipating fatigue and ultimately bringing about a peak in your performance for your fight. So for endurance training, we focus on the ATP PCR system and buffering workouts and the fight simulation over the first 6 weeks of the fight camp. And then again, we transition to maintenance. And then we physically get to the large phase called the transition, and the main focus here is on recovery, dissipating fatigue, and recovering from any injuries that you developed during this whole fight plan. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the plan and move on to the next step. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is schedule workouts for this first sub-phase in the fight-specific phase. And you're going to need to decide on how often and on what days you can work out. So here we're just focusing on your endurance and resistance training workouts, but you'll obviously need to build in all of this around your MMA specific training sessions. And I can't tell you what the magic number is for you in terms of the number of workouts. I can only suggest that you need to have an open communication with your coaches to determine whether your time is better spent adding a resistance or endurance session or picking up another MMA specific session. Also, I'll remind you that it's always better to start out with less sessions and work your way up. And this is a conservative approach, and it can help you avoid overtraining, and that's something that we really try to avoid here. And it's also a good idea to space your workouts out across the week, which that can give you a little bit more recovery time. Okay, so in addition to performing, as I mentioned, the performance test in this first week, this fighter is going to be incorporating resistance and endurance sessions. Now, once you've decided on what days you'll be working out, you can simply shade in the blocks up to the training difficulty line that we drew in the previous session. Again, I recommend starting off with the testing battery here, which is shown in this case on the Monday, and then as we move here to the Tuesday, you can see this is the fighter's first endurance workout, and it's 5 to 6 intervals of 2 minutes on, 7 minutes off with a 1 minute build up. Now, just so we're on the same page, what this really means here is, you complete the 2 minute work interval doing some whole body movement like running, and then you take 7 minutes off, complete rest, and then you start jogging lightly, slowly building your pace over the last minute until you're running at the interval pace, and when that minute ends, and then you're good to go for a solid 2 minutes. So that's what the build-up refers to, that 1 minute build-up. And that's important because it makes sure that you're working at the intensity we want you to work at for the entire interval. And it can also potentially reduce the risk of injuries associated from going from a standstill to the pace that you want to work at. So that's the endurance workout. It's a whole body movement. And then we move into the resistance workout. In this case, it's 5 to 6 reps. So we're working on strength. There's 3 to 6 sets, and the rest is between 2 and 3 minutes, and it's using workout B. Now, you can find these workouts again in our document and our packet that we were working through. You just scroll down through and you'll find traditional strength workouts for workouts A, B, and C. The next endurance workout of the week, it's the same structure. It's 5 to 6 times 2 minutes on, 7 minutes off with a 1 minute build-up. And in this case, it's a whole body movement. But you can also start to work in MMA specific movements here as well. We are in the fight specific phase, and you do want to try to do this, especially as you move deeper into this fight specific phase. So rather than running, you do maybe like striking or grappling or some sort of technical or tactical effort for these work intervals. And then we have the next resistance workout. Now our reps are the same in this workout. It's 5 to 6, and the volume is about 3 to 5 sets, and we have 2 to 3 minute rest intervals. But I need to draw your attention to the workout. It's workout D. It's important to remember that workouts A, B, and C feature traditional strength workouts, but workouts D and E, they feature different exercises. They're focusing on power. They're going to be slightly different movements. You're going to find more Olympic lifts in those cases. And so in this way, we focus on strength in the beginning of the week for a resistance session, and then we transition to power at the end of the week. The training goals here are in muscular endurance, muscular strength, and muscular power, so we need to focus on all of those things in each of these subphases. So that brings us to the end of the first week, week number 1 in the first developmental subphase. Let's go ahead and have a look at week 2. So our endurance session here, we're doing 6 to 7 intervals. It's 2 minutes on still, so the work interval is there, but we've dropped the rest, so that increases the training difficulty, and we still have a 1 minute build up, and this can be a whole body movement. Our resistance workout now, the reps increase to the 12 to 15 range, so we're focusing on muscle endurance here. The volume drops because we're doing more, so we're at somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 sets. The rest drops as well because the load is less, so 30 seconds is about appropriate. And in this case, we're doing workout C. Last time at the beginning of the week, we did workout B, and now we're moving into workout C, and that's important variation on a week-to-week basis. Our next endurance workout, again, this can be a whole body movement, or it could be MMA specific movements. And it's the same structure, 6 to 7 2-minute intervals with 2 minutes off, 1 minute build up. And as we get to the end of the week, the thing to notice here is that we're in the 5 to 6 rep range, 3 to 5 sets, 2 to 3 minutes rest, but we're back to that power workout. It's workout D. You could do workout D or E, it's fine, but you do want to make sure you're changing those up from week to week just to add a little bit of variety. And now we're also building in the fight simulation. So you can go back and watch the section of fight simulation if you don't know what this means, but basically it's 30 seconds on a resistance movement, followed by 30 seconds on endurance movement, then 60-second rest. You complete that 5 times, and then you go for 4 rounds with 60 seconds between each round. It's a good simulation of a fight. And then that brings us to week 3 in this first developmental subphase. So here we're doing 7 to 8 work intervals of 2 minutes. That stays the same, but the rest drops down to 45 seconds, and we have a 15-second build up. So it's a slightly different type of workout with less rest, so it does increase the difficulty, and we focus on different metabolic targets as a result. And here's our resistance workout. So we're back down to strength, 5 to 6 reps, 3 to 6 sets, 2 to 3 minutes rest. And we're back to workout A. So we're always changing that resistance training workout at the beginning of the week. And then the endurance workout, pretty much the same structure. In this case, we're focusing on MMA specific movements. And then that second resistance workout, again, it's always a power workout, 5 to 6 reps, 3 to 5 sets, 2 to 3 minutes rest. And now we're doing workout E. And then we have the fight simulation here. The only change in this fight simulation is that after the 30-second resistance effort, and then you move to the 30-second endurance effort, we drop the rest from 60 seconds down to 45 seconds, and you go through that 5 times, and you're still completing 4 rounds. So that's a pretty challenging first subphase to get into. And it gets to the heart of why we jump into the fight-specific phase. We're assuming that you have a solid base of aerobic fitness and a solid base of muscular fitness. If you don't have that, you really do need to consider whether you're making the right decision of taking a fight on such short notice. So after this difficult training block, these first 3 weeks, then we have our recovery week. The first recovery workout that we're doing, it's an endurance workout, 10 to 20 minutes of whole body, non-specific MMA activities at 50% of your heart rate. And there's a resistance workout this week as well, but it's not really a resistance workout. The main focus is on technical development in the Olympic lifting movements, and as we all know, there's room for improvement in most of us for these complex power-based movements and these lifts. So it's always good to focus on that stuff during your recovery week. It's time very well spent. So after this first subphase, we move into the next subphase. Now this subphase, it was a 3-to-1 loading plan, and here we're focusing on a 1, 2, 3, 4 with 1 recovery week to 1 loading plan. So it's 4-to-1 developmental subphase. It's our second developmental subphase. And so if we look at week 5, let's have a look at what we're getting into. Okay, so you can see our endurance work interval has decreased. So now we're down to 90 seconds. We're doing 6 to 7 intervals. The rest is going to go up because we're working harder, so we're 5-minute rest, and then we have 1-minute build up. And here we're back to that resistance workout focusing on muscle endurance, and we're using workout B. And we have that second endurance workout of the week, 6 to 7 times, 90 seconds on, 5 minutes off, 1-minute build up. Now we're focusing on the MMA specific movements for this structure. And then back to the resistance workout. We've dropped the reps a little bit here, so we're working in the 4 to 5 rep range. And we're using workout D for our power workout. And then here you can see the fight simulation. The main difference here is that we've dropped the rest again from 60 to 45 seconds. Now we're working with 30-second rest between these resistance and endurance training efforts. Everything else pretty much stays the same. As we move to week 6, we can see we're doing 7 to 8 intervals now, 90 seconds on, 5 minutes off, 1-minute build up. And for our resistance, we're focusing on strength in the 4 to 5 rep range. Again, the volume 2 to 6, the rest 3 to 4 minutes. And now we're using workout C. And back to the endurance workout, 7 to 8 times, 90 seconds on, 5 minutes off, 1-minute build up. So that's like a mirror of the first endurance workout of the week. You could do MMA specific movements here if you like. And then the resistance workout, this is workout E, so we know it's going to be a power workout. And you can see the load is about 4 to 5 reps, and you can see the rest of the structure here. And then we move to our fight simulation. Here we're back up to 60-second rest between the blocks, but you can adjust that as you like. The reason why we want to go back up to 60-second rest between the resistance and endurance blocks is that we've added another whole round. So this is still an increase in training difficulty just because we're adding an entire round to this fight simulation, which is very challenging. As we move into week 7, we can see our first endurance session here. The work interval has dropped again. Now we're working with 60-second intervals. We're going to do 7 to 8 of those. We're going to increase the rest somewhere in the region of 4 minutes with 1-minute build up. And for our resistance workout, we're focusing on muscle endurance because we're in the 12 to 15 rep range, and we're going to use workout A, and you can see the rest of the structure here. Our next workout, endurance again, 7 to 8 intervals, 60 seconds on, 4 minutes off, 1-minute build up. In this case, we're focusing on an MMA specific movement. And then here's our resistance workout. It's workout D. We know it's a power workout. And the secondary important thing to notice here is that we're focusing in the 4 to 5 rep range. So not much of a change here in structure for the power workouts in this second subphase. And then we move into the end of the week, the fight simulation. And the big thing here is that we're doing 30 seconds for the resistance interval, 30 seconds for the endurance interval, and we've dropped the rest back down. We were at 60, now we're back down to 30, but we're still doing 5 rounds, so this represents a real challenge. This is a difficult workout. And then as we move into week 8, our endurance workout, 8 to 10 intervals this time, 60 seconds on, 4 minutes off, 1-minute build up. Our resistance workout, pure strength, 4 to 5 reps, 2 to 6 sets, 3 minutes to 4 minutes rest, and it's workout B. And here's our endurance workout, 8 to 10 intervals of 60 seconds on, 4 minutes off, 1-minute build up. And again, here we're focusing on MMA specific movements, and then we get to our next resistance workout. Here, this is workout E, and it's in the 4 to 5 rep range. And then we get to the end of this week here. This very challenging subphase is ending here with this session. And the big difference is we've dropped the rest down again after the resistance and endurance block to 15 seconds. Everything else stays the same. You're doing 5 rounds. And then we have our recovery week, a very important recovery week here. You want to make sure you take it easy because we're moving into the fight camp and some very challenging training ahead. So here's the endurance recovery workout, same as last time. And then here's the resistance workout, again focusing on power, technique, your Olympic lifting. And let's scroll over to the fight camp. Okay, so as we get into the fight camp, you can see our first endurance workout. It's down to 30-second work intervals now. We're going to do 4 to 8 of those at 2 minutes rest with 1-minute build up, and it's a whole body movement. And then we're focusing back again on muscle endurance with workout C. We're moving back to the endurance workout, 4 to 8 times, 30 seconds on, 2 minutes off, 1 minute build up with the MMA specific movement. And then here our power workout, workout D, we're going to be focusing on 3 to 4 reps. And then we get to the end of this first week in this third shock subphase. So we know this is going to be a challenging subphase. In week 10, we're doing this fight simulation with 30 seconds for the resistance work, 30 seconds for the endurance work, 15 seconds rest between those. And then we're going to go on to the next week after that. So here, 6 to 8 intervals of 30 seconds on, 1 minute off, 30-second build up. And this is going to be some type of whole body movement, as you can see. And then we're back in for workout A. It's a strength workout, 3 to 4 reps. And then here's our endurance workout, 6 to 8, 30 seconds on, 1 minute off, 30-second build up with the MMA specific movement. And then here's our power workout, 3 to 4 reps again. And then that takes us to our fight simulation. The big challenge here is that now we're removing the rest between the resistance and endurance session. So you're doing 30 seconds back to back, and then you're going to go through that 5 times. This really does represent the closest thing to an actual fight. Now, you might be doing 3 rounds, or you might be doing the full 5 rounds. Either way, here, this is a real challenge. And then we move into week number 12 in this third subphase of this shock subphase. We're going to be dropping the work interval down to 20 seconds. So we're going to aim to do 7 to 10 of these, 2 minutes rest in between with 30-second build up. And we're back to a muscle endurance workout using workout B. And then we transition back to our next endurance workout. Again, it's in the same structure, 20 seconds on, 2 minutes off, 30 seconds. Build up 7 to 10 of these. And then our resistance workout, it's our power workout for 3 to 4 reps, 3 to 5 sets, 4 to 5 minutes rest. And then we go back to our fight simulation. It's the same structure as the last fight simulation. It's a real challenge. So taken together, when you add in these consistent, difficult weeks, it makes for a very challenging subphase. And this is the third subphase. And so this recovery week, again, is very important. So you see the same structure for the recovery weeks here. 10 to 20 minutes of light activity for the endurance workout, and then we're focusing on Olympic lifting again for the resistance workout. So as we move into the fourth subphase, this is a little bit of a funny one. What we're looking at here is a developmental subphase with 1, 2, 3, 4 work weeks, and there's no recovery week. So this has a loading pattern of 4 to 0. Now, I thought that this was appropriate because after this subphase, we're heading right into the taper in the fifth subphase, and there's going to be a significant amount of rest here in order to bring about a peak in our performance. We're going to be dissipating a lot of fatigue here. So that's the rationale for the way that this block is set up, but let's talk about what's actually in it. So here's our endurance workout. We're going to be doing 10 times 15-second intervals. And so the interval time is dropped. We're going to have a minute and a half rest with 30 seconds build up, and this is some whole body movement. For resistance, we've dropped the reps. Now we're working with strength, and it's going to be workout C. And for the endurance workout, we've dropped the interval again. We're doing 15 6-second intervals, 1 minute light jogging in between, and perhaps an MMA specific movement would be good here. And then our resistance workout, we're down to 2 to 3 reps for a power workout, and we're going to be using workout D. And then we get to the end of this week, it's the fight simulation, and the fight simulation structure stays the same as it did last time. So it's 30 seconds for our resistance interval work, and then 30 seconds for our endurance, no rest for a whole round, and then you continue that 5 more times. As we move into week 15, then we're altering the work interval again. So here we're doing 15 10-second work intervals with a minute and a half off, 30-second build-up. And here we're back to a muscle endurance workout using workout A in the 12 to 15 rep range. And then here our endurance workout features, it's 6 times, 6 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and then you take 3 minutes rest and you perform that whole block 3 to 6 times. And this is also appropriate for an MMA specific workout. And then here is our resistance workout. It's a power-based workout because we're using workout E, and we're doing 2 to 3 reps, 3 to 5 sets, 5-minute rest in between. And then we move back to this fight simulation. Again, it's the same structure as the last fight simulation. It doesn't really get any harder than this. And that brings us into week 16. You can see the first workout of this week. It's 15 times 5 seconds on, 1 minute off with 15-second build-up. That transitions into our next resistance workout. It's a strength workout using workout B in the 2 to 3 rep range. Here's our next endurance workout. We've altered the work interval again, so we're doing 4 to 5 times 20 seconds on, 10 minutes off, so there's a lot of rest here with 4-minute build-up. We're starting to build in more rest as we get closer to the fight. Remember, any adaptations from this training is not going to present until after the fight. So this is an example of our training goal shifting to maintenance and dissipating fatigue. As you can see here below, that's where we're at. So that's why we start to see more rest in our workouts, and this is just a good example of that right here. 20 seconds on, 10 minutes off. Lots of rest. You're going to feel great during those work intervals. And the resistance workout, the load, 2 to 3 reps, 3 to 4 sets, 5 minutes rest, and it's workout D, so that's a good power-based workout. And then here's our fight simulation again, same structure as the previous weeks. And then we get into week 17. We're going to be doing 7 to 10 30 seconds work intervals with 5 minutes off. So again, that's a lot of rest, 4 minutes build up. And we're back to muscle endurance. Here we're only going to be doing 1 to 2 sets of this, 30 to 45 seconds, workout C. And here is our endurance workout, 15 times 5 seconds on, 1 minute off. There's a very large work to rest ratios here, and hopefully we're helping to dissipate some of the fatigue, but still maintaining your performance. And then here's the resistance workout, the load, 2 to 3 reps, 2 to 3 sets, 5 minutes off, and it's workout E, so it's a power-based workout. And here's a fight simulation. It's not at all imperative or critical or required that you do the fight simulation here this close to the fight. A lot of fighters will do it just to maintain their mental preparedness. That's a good reason to do it. It's not required. If you feel you need to do it or your fighter feels they need to do it, great, go ahead. It's not required, and the main concern as you do this fight simulation very close to the fight is it might build up a lot of fatigue. So just know the risks here. If you're bordering on overtraining, you're feeling very fatigued, then you shouldn't do this. If you feel fresh and you feel like mentally you need it, then do it. So this brings us into the taper. So you can see here the taper is characterized by a very large reduction in training difficulty. And so let's go ahead and have a look at what this actually looks like. So here, we're going to be doing 6 to 7 intervals of 30 seconds on, 5 minutes off, 4-minute build-up. So there's a lot of rest in that workout, whole body movement. And for resistance, we're going to be working with 2 to 3 reps, and we're only going to be doing 1 to 2 sets here, so the volume has dropped significantly, and lots of rest, 5-minute intervals, and it's workout A. And then as we get to the next endurance workout, it's 4 to 5 intervals of 20 seconds on with a lot of rest, 10 minutes off, 4-minute build up. And so again, we're really focusing on dissipating the fatigue in this second to last week before your fight. It's MMA specific movement here. And then for your resistance workout, again, 2 to 3 reps. We're dropping the volume down to 1 or 2 sets, 5 minutes rest in between, and it's workout E, so it's a power-based workout. And then again, the fight simulation is here, but you know the risks of doing it. If you're feeling fatigued, don't. If you feel fresh and you feel like you need to do it, then go ahead. As we get into our final week before the fight, if you want, you can include these workouts. An endurance workout, 15 times 5 seconds on, 1 minute off, 15-second build-up. And then for the resistance workout, it's 2 to 3 reps, 1 to 2 sets, 5 minutes, rest in between, and it's a power-based workout. And then you have your fight. And so, of course, after your fight, there's nothing happening in the week after. And then we start to transition to your next fight plan. And there's a lot of different things you can do in the transition to try to maintain your performance and get you ready for the next fight plan. The first and foremost thing you need to do is make sure you have a mental and physical break from very intense training, and you really shouldn't be doing any MMA specific training here. And so you can see the workout that we're using first is a general endurance recovery workout. And then for resistance, we're focusing on muscle endurance in the 12 to 15 rep range. And then we do want to start to add a little bit more structure as we get closer to our next fight plan. Here's another example of the same recovery workout. And then here, there's a resistance workout again for muscle endurance.
And then that brings us to a workout with a little more structure here. This is an endurance workout, 3 to 4 times, 2 minutes on, 7 minutes off with a 1 minute build up. And that takes us to the end of this short 4-month fight plan. Let's go back to the lecture and let's recap. Okay, so that's it for our example, and here's a quick summary of everything that we did, and as you can see, we really did a lot. I hope that this session put everything into perspective for you and gave you confidence in programming all these workouts that I showed you across your entire fight plan. Now remember, once you've gotten this far, scheduling workouts across your fight plan is just as simple as matching up your current phase, your training phase that you're in right now, with the associated workout and the programming across your fight plan document and just slotting them in. You should also remember that you really only need to be programming workouts 2 to 4 weeks out from where you are now, because so many things can happen in just a few weeks. You can really waste a lot of time if you plan too far and then have to go back and change all of that. So really you only need to be programming just a couple weeks out from where you are now, and maybe just the sub phase that you're working through. And that's really why I recommend that you keep on coming back to this session, because I showed you every workout across the fight plan. You really just need to skip to that part of the video where you're at in your phase and just follow my example, and you should just be fine. After all, this isn't rocket science. There's no one right way to do this, and I hope that gives you some confidence to experiment. There certainly are some wrong ways to do this, but again, if you just follow my example, I can promise that you will be rewarded with peak performance on fight day. So that's it for us. Let's leave it here for now, and I wish you the best of luck and success. Take care.